The giant space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. Inside its massive halls, representatives from 47 different alien species had gathered for the annual Galactic Engineering Summit. This year, everyone was talking about one thing: the zero-gravity challenge. The challenge room was huge, 30 meters in every direction. Its walls were made of clear panels so observers could watch from outside. In the center of the room, dozens of metal pieces floated in the air. These pieces were parts of an energy relay. The challenge was simple: go into the room, put the pieces together. But there were rules. No magnetic boots, no rope systems, no jetpacks, nothing to help you move or stay in place. Just you and the floating pieces in zero gravity. Commander Thexral stepped up to the entrance. He was a Vortan, a species known across the galaxy for their engineering skills. Thexral had 4 arms, which everyone thought would make this challenge easy for him. He had won engineering competitions before. Today should be no different. Thexral pushed himself off the platform and glided toward the floating pieces. He moved fast, confident. His 4 arms spread wide, ready to grab the components and start working. Then everything went wrong. The moment he reached for the first piece, his momentum carried him right past it. He tried to stop, but there was nothing to grab onto. He twisted his body, trying to turn around. This just made him spin. His 4 arms flailed in the air, grabbing at nothing. Within seconds, Thexral was tumbling through the chamber like a leaf in a storm. He spun faster and faster until the safety team had to activate emergency magnets to pull him out. The observers watched in stunned silence. Thexral was supposed to be the best. If he failed this badly, what chance did anyone else have? Next came Shira from the Quellan Collective. Her species had special organs inside their bodies that helped them balance perfectly on any surface. She walked to the entrance platform with confidence. She had seen Thexral's mistake. She would move more carefully. Shira pushed off gently, much slower than Thexral had moved. She drifted toward the components with her arms ready. She reached the first piece and grabbed it. Success. For about 2 seconds. The moment she tried to turn the piece to connect it to another part, physics took over. The piece pushed back against her hands. She started spinning in one direction. The piece spun in the other direction. Her special balance organs were useless here. They needed a floor, a reference point. In zero gravity, there was no up or down. No way to know which way was correct. Shira tried to stop her spin. Every movement she made just created more spinning. After 2 minutes of struggling, she gave up. The safety team pulled her out too. 7 more species tried that day. Each one failed in different ways. The Hexari were beings made of crystal. They tried using their ability to bend light to push themselves around. They managed to move a little bit, but their crystalline bodies reflected light in all directions. Soon they could not tell which way they were going. They crashed into the walls and had to be rescued. The Murians had long tentacles instead of arms. They thought they could grab many pieces at once and hold themselves steady. Instead, their tentacles got tangled with the floating components. They created a huge mess that took the station workers an hour to untangle. One by one, every species tried and failed. Some got close to the pieces. A few even managed to touch them, but nobody could put even 2 pieces together. The challenge seemed impossible. In the observation gallery, 3 humans sat quietly. They wore simple blue uniforms with Earth Space Corps patches on their shoulders. The woman in the middle was named Hyun. She had short black hair and dark eyes that watched everything carefully. Next to her sat Taman, a younger man who kept drawing diagrams on his data pad. The third human, Bora, sat with her arms crossed, watching the failures with a calm expression. Taman erased another drawing and muttered something under his breath. Hyun leaned closer to hear him. "They are thinking about it wrong," Taman said quietly. "They are trying to fight against the physics." Hyun nodded slowly. "They treat zero gravity like it is something to overcome, something to defeat. But you cannot fight physics," Bora added. "You have to work with it." A tall alien approached their seats. It was one of the Quellan judges. Its translator device turned its whistling sounds into words the humans could understand. "Earth humans wish to attempt the challenge?" the judge asked. The 3 humans looked at each other. They had planned to watch more attempts first, learn from other species' mistakes, but the judge seemed eager to see them try now. "We were scheduled for tomorrow," Hyun said carefully. "All scheduled species have attempted today. You may try now or lose your chance." The judge's tone made it clear what it expected. It thought the humans would refuse. After all, humans were new to the galactic community. First contact had happened only 5 years ago. Nobody knew much about human engineering capabilities. Hyun stood up from her seat. "We will try now." Taemin and Bora started to stand too, but Hyun shook her head. "Let me go first. If this works, you two can show it was not just luck." A wave of attention moved through the observation gallery. Many aliens had started to leave, thinking the entertainment was over for the day. Now they stopped and turned back. They wanted to see how badly the primitive humans would fail. The challenge room was reset. The floating pieces were put back in their starting positions. Hyun walked through the airlock and stood on the entrance platform. She did not rush forward like the others had done. Instead, she stood very still, looking, studying, thinking. She looked at the pieces floating in the center. She looked at the walls. She looked at the distance between everything. Almost a full minute passed while she just stood there calculating in her mind. Then Hyun did something strange, something that made the watching aliens confused. Instead of pushing herself toward the floating pieces like everyone else had done, Hyun pushed herself backward, away from the components. In the observation gallery, aliens started talking loudly. Some laughed. Some made gestures of dismissal. The human had made a mistake. She was going the wrong direction. This would be over quickly. But a few observers, the ones paying closer attention, noticed something. Hyun was not moving randomly. Her backward push had been very precise, very controlled, and as she drifted through the air, slowly rotating, she kept her arms close to her body. Her legs stayed together. No wild movements, no panic, just smooth, controlled drift. She floated toward the far wall. As she got close, she extended both hands. Her fingers spread wide. She touched the wall with the lightest possible touch. Just her fingertips making contact. That tiny touch stopped almost all her movement. The small amount of momentum she still had, she directed with a gentle press of her fingers. This sent her drifting back toward the center of the room. This time, her path led straight to the cluster of floating components. The observation gallery went quiet. The aliens stopped laughing. This human knew something they did not. Hyun approached the component slowly, carefully. She extended one arm, reaching for the largest piece. It was the central hub that all the other pieces would connect to. But she did not grab it, not yet. Instead, she touched it with just one finger. The piece started to spin slightly from the touch. Hyun watched it spin, waited, counted in her head, then touched it again in just the right spot. The spin stopped. Only then did she wrap her hand around the piece and grip it firmly. The act of gripping created force. Hyun had expected this. Her other hand was already reaching in the opposite direction, touching a smaller component. The two forces balanced each other out. She hung there in the air, perfectly still, holding two pieces of the relay. Now came the hard part. She needed to bring these two pieces together without starting to spin or drift away. She pulled the large hub toward her chest with one hand. At the same moment, she pushed the smaller piece in the opposite direction with equal force. The movements canceled each other out. Then, in one smooth motion, she rotated both pieces toward each other. Used the momentum of one to counter the momentum of the other. The pieces came together. Their magnetic connectors clicked into place. A green light appeared on the pieces. Connection successful. In the observation gallery, nobody made a sound. One connection out of 47 needed connections. But it was one more than any alien species had managed. Hyun did not stop to celebrate. She was already looking at the next piece. It floated just out of reach. She could not just push herself toward it. That would create momentum she could not control. Instead, she did something clever. She held the partially assembled relay at arm's length, then pulled it back toward her chest sharply. The relay had mass. Pulling it made her body drift backward slightly, just enough to position her where the next component floated. She caught the third piece with her foot, trapped it between her ankles. Then slowly, carefully, she brought her leg up, using her muscles to move the piece to where her hands could reach it. The whole time, every movement was balanced. Every action had an equal and opposite reaction that she controlled. 5 minutes into her attempt, 7 components were connected. 10 minutes in, 15 pieces locked together. The relay was taking shape in her hands. The aliens watched in disbelief. How was this possible? Humans had no special adaptations. No extra arms. The next morning, news of Hyun's success had spread throughout the entire station. Aliens who had left early the day before now rushed back to the observation gallery. They wanted to see if another human could do it. They wanted to know if Hyun's success was real or just incredible luck. The gallery was packed. Standing room only. Delegates pressed against the viewing windows. Some had brought recording devices. Others took notes on datapads. Everyone wanted to witness what would happen next. Taemin stood on the entrance platform. He felt the weight of 1,000 eyes watching him. Hyun had succeeded, which was amazing. But now everyone expected him to succeed too. If he failed, people would say Hyun just got lucky. Earth's reputation in the galactic community depended on what happened in the next 20 minutes. He looked out at the floating components. They had been reset to their starting positions. 47 pieces waiting to be assembled. Taemin took a deep breath. He had trained for this his entire career. He knew what to do. Unlike Hyun's careful, precise approach, Taemin had always been different. More instinctive. More willing to improvise and adapt. Where Hyun planned every move, Taemin preferred to flow with the moment. He pushed off from the platform. Not backward like Hyun had done. Not straight forward like the aliens had tried. He pushed at an angle, giving himself a slow rotation as he drifted through the chamber. The watching aliens murmured in confusion. Was this human making a mistake? Why was he spinning? But the spin was intentional. As Taemin rotated slowly through the air, he could see the entire chamber. Every wall. Every floating component. He did not have to turn his head or twist his body. Movements that would change his direction in ways he did not want. The rotation let him see everything while maintaining smooth momentum. He watched the pieces drift past his vision as he spun. When he spotted the component he wanted, he did not grab for it immediately. He waited, patient. His body continued its slow rotation. When the spin brought him into the perfect position, then he reached out. His hand closed around the piece. The grab stopped his rotation. The momentum transferred from his body to the component instead. Now the piece was spinning in his grip. Taemin let it rotate, studying it as it turned. Understanding its weight, its balance. Then he reached out with his other hand and caught a second component. By holding two pieces and adjusting his grip on each one, Taemin could control how they spun. He could even use their rotation to help line up the connection points. When the spinning brought the two pieces into alignment, he pressed them together. They clicked and locked. Where Hyun had moved with mathematical precision, Taemin flowed like water. He seemed to dance through the zero-gravity chamber. When he needed to change direction, he would extend a component away from his body and let its mass swing him around in a new direction. When he needed to stop moving, he would catch his own momentum with carefully timed movements that looked effortless, but required perfect timing. The alien observers found his technique even more confusing than Hyun's. At least Hyun's method had been logical. Easy to understand. Plan your moves. Execute carefully. But Taemin looked like he was making everything up as he went along. Yet somehow every movement worked perfectly. Every spin brought him exactly where he needed to be. Every grab happened at exactly the right moment. A Hexari delegate turned to its neighbor. How is this possible? He appears to have no plan at all. But look at the results, the other responded. Chaos that produces order. Perhaps that is the human way. Taemin continued his dance through the chamber. He grabbed components while spinning. Used his rotation to build momentum. Changed direction by throwing pieces in carefully calculated directions. It looked wild and uncontrolled, but it was actually the result of thousands of hours of training. Every movement Taemin made, his brain was calculating trajectories, momentum, rotation rates. He just made it look easy. 12 minutes into his attempt, he had assembled over 30 components. The relay was nearly complete. Taemin spun himself around one more time, spotted the final pieces, and reached out. 3 components left, 2, 1. The last piece clicked into place. The relay hummed to life. All indicators showed green. Success. The automated voice announced his time. 17 minutes, 32 seconds, status, full success. Taemin gave himself one final spin, a little flourish that brought him face to face with the observation gallery. He grinned widely and waved before pushing off toward the exit platform. The gallery erupted in noise. Aliens shouting questions in dozens of languages. Translators working overtime to keep up with the chaos. The judges rushed to meet Taemin as he exited the chamber. They held datapads and recording devices. One judge, a tall being with 6 legs, spoke first. Your technique was completely different from Specialist Hyun's method yesterday. Yet you achieved the same success. How? Taemin shrugged, still catching his breath. We train in zero gravity on Earth, but we do not all move the same way. Some people like Hyun prefer stable, controlled movements, very precise, very planned. Others, like me, prefer to keep rotating. The constant spin gives you awareness of everything around you. It also gives you options. You can use rotation as a tool. This is standard human training? Another judge asked. The doubt was clear in its voice. For astronauts and space construction workers, yes. We have facilities on Earth. Large pools of water where we practice in neutral buoyancy. It is not exactly zero gravity, but close enough to learn the basic principles. We spend months in those pools, learning to move, learning to control our momentum, learning to work without gravity to hold us down. Before the judges could ask more questions, Bora stepped forward from the crowd. May I attempt the challenge now? The judges looked at each other. They had not expected all three humans to want to try, but they quickly agreed. They needed to see more, needed to understand if this was really a human skill, or if these two had just been exceptionally talented individuals. Bora entered the chamber with quiet confidence. She had watched both her teammates succeed. She had studied their techniques. Now she would show her own method. She pushed off toward the components directly. Not backward like Hyun, not spinning like Taemin. Just a straight, gentle push that barely gave her any speed. She drifted slowly toward the floating pieces. When she reached the first component, she did something neither Hyun nor Taemin had done. Instead of immediately trying to work with it, she grabbed it and held on. Used it as an anchor point. She pulled herself closer to the cluster of components and positioned her body carefully. She wedged herself between several pieces, using them as a temporary framework, a stable platform to work from. The watching aliens leaned forward. This was different again. A third human. A third, completely different approach. From her wedged position, Bora could reach multiple components at once. She did not have to worry about drifting away because she had anchored herself in the middle of the pieces. She could work with both hands freely, assembling sections of the relay while using the growing structure itself for stability. It was perhaps the most efficient method yet. She traded movement for stability. Instead of floating around the chamber, she stayed in one place and brought the pieces to her. When she needed a component that was too far away, she would carefully unwedge herself, drift to the new location, and set up a new stable working position. Bora worked quickly. Her method allowed her to focus entirely on assembly without worrying about momentum or rotation. Component after component clicked together in her hands. The relay grew rapidly. 14 minutes after starting, she pressed the final piece into place. The relay activated. Green lights across every connection. 14 minutes, 8 seconds, status full success. As Bora exited the chamber, the observation gallery sat in thoughtful silence. Not confusion this time, not disbelief. Something deeper. A growing realization. 3 humans. 3 completely different techniques. 3 successes. This was not luck. This was not coincidence. This was skill. Training. Understanding. Commander Thexral approached the human delegation. His forearms were held in a gesture that Hyun recognized as a sign of deep respect in Vortan culture. I must admit something, Thexral said, his voice humble. I did not expect this. Your species has been in space for such a short time compared to most of us. The Vortan Empire has had spaceflight for over 3,000 years. Yet you demonstrate mastery that exceeds our own. I do not understand how this is possible. Hyun chose her words carefully. It is not mastery, Commander. It is adaptation. We did not have a choice but to learn. Our early space programs were desperate. Humans in small metal capsules with basic life support. We had to figure out how to survive in an environment that wanted to kill us. We spent decades working in zero gravity with no technology to help us. We got good at it because we had to. A Kelon delegate named Shira floated closer. Most species develop artificial gravity technology early in their space exploration. The Quelon Collective had artificial gravity before we even left our home star system. We never needed to spend much time in true zero gravity. Why did humans not do this? Bora answered. We could not. Our technology was not advanced enough. For almost 100 years, our astronauts worked in space stations and ships with no. Word spread fast across the galaxy. Within days, representatives from the Galactic Engineering Consortium requested a demonstration. They wanted to see human zero-gravity techniques in person. They wanted to understand how a species so new to space could excel where ancient civilizations had failed. The demonstration was scheduled at Luna Base, humanity's main training facility on Earth's moon. Military observers from 12 different species made the journey to watch. Scientists and engineers came from every corner of known space. Everyone wanted to learn the secret. Luna Base sat inside a crater on the moon's far side. Its main training facility was Module 7, a huge cylindrical chamber 50 meters long and 30 meters wide. The module had been designed specifically for zero-gravity training. No artificial gravity, no magnetic systems. Just pure empty space where humans learned to work. The human team had grown. Yun, Taemin, and Bora were joined by 4 more specialists. Doyen was the oldest, a man with gray hair and 30 years of experience building space stations. Minji was young, barely 25, but she specialized in emergency repairs in dangerous conditions. Jiho had been a military pilot before becoming a zero-gravity instructor. Yoonji was a physicist who had written research papers about how momentum worked in space. The alien observers floated in a shielded section of the chamber. Each species needed different atmosphere and temperature, so they stayed in protective environmental suits. Through the clear walls, they watched as the 7 humans prepared to demonstrate their skills. Doyen went first. He floated to the center of the chamber and called out to the observers. "I will show you what we call the turtle method. Watch carefully." He curled his body into a tight ball, arms wrapped around his knees, head tucked down. He looked like a human sphere floating in space. Then suddenly he extended all his limbs at once. Arms and legs shot outward. The motion created rotation and pushed him across the chamber in a controlled direction. He tucked into a ball again, extended again. Each time he moved in a new direction. It looked strange, almost comical, but it was incredibly effective. He could navigate through tight spaces, around obstacles, through gaps barely wider than his body, all without touching anything. The turtle method is useful when you are working in crowded areas, Doyen explained, between pipes or equipment, places where you cannot spread out. You make yourself small, then use quick extensions to move. The Vortan observers took detailed notes. Commander Thexral spoke into his recording device. "Remarkable. We never considered using the body itself as both compact storage and propulsion system." Next came Minji. She positioned herself at one end of the chamber. "I will demonstrate emergency response technique. Imagine a critical system has failed. You need to reach it quickly. Seconds matter." She pushed off hard, much harder than anyone had moved during the challenge. She flew across the chamber at startling speed. But she was not out of control. As she approached the far wall, she touched it with just her fingertips. The touch redirected her momentum 90 degrees. She shot toward the ceiling. Another touch. Another redirect. She bounced around the chamber like a bullet, but every movement was precise. Controlled. She grabbed a piece of equipment mounted on the wall. Stopped instantly. In an emergency, speed matters. But speed without control kills you. We train to move fast while maintaining awareness. Every touch point is calculated. Every redirect is planned 3 moves ahead. The alien military observers leaned forward with intense interest. A Hexari general spoke quietly to its aide. "This has combat applications." Significant ones. Jiho heard the comment and smiled. "You are correct, General. May I demonstrate?" The Hexari general's crystalline body flashed with curiosity. "Please do." Jiho moved to the center of the chamber. In zero-gravity, combat is not about strength. It is about controlling momentum, your opponent's and your own. He gestured to Taemin. "Attack me." Taemin pushed off toward Jiho, arms reaching to grab him. At the last second, Jiho twisted his body slightly. Taemin's hands missed by centimeters, but Jiho's hand caught Taemin's wrist. With a gentle pull, Jiho redirected all of Taemin's momentum. Taemin went spinning away, completely out of control. "In gravity, you need strength to throw someone," Jiho explained. "In space, you just need to redirect their existing momentum." They did all the work. You just gave it a new direction. He demonstrated several more techniques. How to grapple without giving your opponent leverage. How to position yourself so any attack pushed your opponent away instead of you. How to use rotation to avoid strikes while maintaining position. Every move was about physics, not muscles. The military observers recorded everything. This was a completely new way of thinking about combat. Most species used weapons or technology in space battles. The idea of hand-to-hand combat in zero gravity had never seemed practical. Now they saw it could be devastatingly effective. Yunji's demonstration was different, more academic. She floated in the center with a data pad showing mathematical equations. Everything we do in zero gravity is physics. Simple physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Momentum is conserved. These are basic laws, but in zero gravity they are everything. She pushed off gently from a wall. As she drifted, she spoke. When I push off, I calculate my trajectory instantly. Speed, angle, distance to target. This becomes instinct after enough practice. Watch. She pointed at a spot on the far wall. I will touch that exact point. She adjusted her body slightly during the drift, extended one hand at precisely the right moment. Her finger touched the wall exactly where she had pointed. Mental calculation, trajectory prediction. We train this until it is automatic. She grabbed the wall and pushed off again. Now I will intercept a moving object. Taemin threw a tool across the chamber. Hunji drifted through space, her path intersecting with the tool's path perfectly. She caught it without even looking at it. Her eyes had tracked it for 2 seconds. Then she had looked away, trusting her brain's calculation of where it would be. This is not magic, Yunji said. This is practice. Hundreds of hours in zero gravity, learning to calculate without thinking. Your brain learns the patterns, learns the physics. Eventually, you do not think about the math. You just know where things will be. After the individual demonstrations, the team came together for a group exercise. They assembled a complex structure in the chamber, working together with perfect coordination. They moved around each other like dancers, never colliding, always aware of everyone's position and momentum. Doyen explained as they worked. Group coordination is essential. On Earth, when you work with a team, you stand on the ground. You have fixed positions. In space, everyone is always moving. You must track not just where people are, but where they will be, where their momentum is carrying them. We use a system we call the buddy principle, Hyun added, connecting 2 components while drifting past. You always have awareness of your partner. Before you make a large movement, you signal them, just a touch or a gesture. They can prepare to compensate for your momentum transfer. The demonstration lasted 3 hours. The alien observers filled their data pads with notes, asked hundreds of questions, requested slow-motion replays of specific techniques. By the end, a clear picture had emerged. Humans had spent over a century working in space with primitive technology, no artificial gravity, no advanced propulsion, just human bodies and basic life support. Those decades of struggle had taught them something valuable: how to exist in zero gravity not as visitors using technology, but as beings who understood the environment itself. After the demonstration ended, the observers gathered in a briefing room. Doyen stood at the front with a holographic display behind him. I want to explain why we developed these techniques. It is important to understand the history. He pulled up images of early human space stations, tiny metal cylinders, cramped, primitive. This is Skylab, one of our first space stations. Launched in 1973, no artificial gravity. Astronauts lived here for months, learning to work in zero gravity because they had no choice. More images appeared. Mir Space Station, International Space Station. For decades, humans lived and worked in these conditions. We could not afford to build artificial gravity systems. Our technology was too limited. So we adapted. Every astronaut spent months training in water tanks, in aircraft that flew in parabolic arcs to create brief moments of weightlessness. We built our skills slowly, through trial and error. People got sick, made mistakes, learned from them. Gradually, we developed techniques that worked. Yunji took over the presentation. We also studied the physics intensely. We published thousands of research papers on momentum transfer, trajectory calculation, human movement in zero gravity. We turned our limitation into a science. Now every human who goes to space trains these skills, Minji added. It is standard, basic, like learning to walk is basic on a planet. Learning to float is basic for us in space. A Quelon observer raised a tentacle. Your species turned weakness into strength. You had no technology, so you developed understanding instead. Exactly, Bora confirmed. And now, even though we have better technology, we understand the physics. If you know how to move with just your body, you can... 3 months after the Luna-based demonstration, the Galactic Engineering Consortium made an announcement. They had a major project that needed to be completed. A massive communications relay in the Deneb sector. The area was known for dangerous electromagnetic interference. Automated systems did not work there. Magnetic fields from a nearby neutron star disrupted all electronic controls. The entire construction would have to be done manually in zero gravity. 6 species volunteered workers for the project. The Vortan sent 8 engineers. The Quellan sent 6. The Hexari contributed 5 specialists. 3 Murian workers joined. A pair of crystalline Velkari signed up. And Earth sent a team of 12 humans. The construction vessel Meridian would serve as their base. It was a converted cargo ship, large but not luxurious. The cargo bay had been emptied and converted into a zero-gravity work area, where teams could practice before going outside to build the actual relay. The human team arrived first. Hyun was designated as the overall human coordinator. Doyen would lead the construction teams. The others would rotate between teaching duties and actual building work. When the alien workers arrived, Hyun could see the nervousness on their faces. Well, on the faces of species that had faces. The Hexari expressed nervousness through flickering light patterns. The Murians released subtle chemical signals that the ship's sensors detected. Doyen called a meeting in the main briefing room. Representatives from all 6 species gathered. Some floated. Some used magnetic boots. Some clung to handholds on the walls. "We have a problem," Doyen said bluntly. "Half of you have never worked in true zero gravity for extended periods. The other half has limited experience. This project will take weeks. We cannot succeed if people are struggling with basic movement." Commander Thexrel gestured with his 4 arms. "What do you propose?" 2 weeks of training before we start construction," Doyen replied. "Intensive training. Every day. All of us together. Humans will teach. You will learn. No shame in this. We all have things to learn from each other." A Hexari engineer flickered doubtfully. 2 weeks seems excessive. "Better to spend 2 weeks training than 6 months fixing mistakes," Minji countered. "In zero gravity, mistakes are expensive, dangerous. Components drift away. People get hurt. We do this right the first time." After some discussion, all the species agreed. Training would begin the next day. The Meridian's cargo bay became a classroom. Doyen divided it into sections. Each section focused on a different skill. The human instructors rotated through the sections, working with small groups of alien workers. Progress was slow at first. The Vortans struggled badly. Their forearms were a huge advantage in normal work, but in zero gravity they created problems. Every time a Vortan moved all 4 arms, it created force in 4 different directions. The forces did not balance. Workers spun out of control, arms flailing, making the problem worse. Minji worked with the Vortan team patiently. "Stop thinking of your arms as 4 separate tools. Think in pairs. 2 arms for work, 2 arms for balance. When you reach with your upper arms, your lower arms should move in the opposite direction. Create balance." It took days of practice, but slowly the Vortans began to understand. They learned to move 2 arms while keeping 2 arms still. Then they learned to use their lower arms as anchors while their upper arms worked. By the end of the first week, they were moving with much more control. The Hexari had different problems. Their bodies were crystalline, rigid. They could not curl up like Doyen's turtle method, could not bend in the middle like humans did. They were essentially floating crystals that could only move their limbs slightly. Yunji studied the problem carefully. She spent hours watching how Hexari bodies worked. Finally, she had an idea. "Your species can shift your internal mass, correct? You do this to maintain balance on your home world." "Yes," a Hexari worker confirmed. "We shift our dense core slightly inside our crystalline shell. Then use that in space," Yunji suggested. "Shift your core to one side. The movement will push your shell in the opposite direction. Small movements, but you can control them precisely." The Hexari tried this technique. It worked, but only for tiny adjustments, not enough to actually move around. Then one Hexari engineer had a breakthrough. What if we use tools as extensions? Hold a tool, shift our core, the tool moves, we move in reaction. It was brilliant. The Hexari learned to use tools not just for work, but as reaction mass. They could achieve surprising mobility for beings made of rigid crystal. The Murians proved to be naturally talented once they understood the basic principles. Their tentacles could move independently. This was perfect for zero-gravity work. But they had one bad habit. They tried to use all their tentacles at once. Jiho worked with them. "Your tentacles are amazing tools, but you need to use them in sequence, not all together. Move one tentacle, let it complete its motion. Then move another. Create a rhythm, a flow. One Mirian named Kelsh grasped the concept quickly. Like swimming in our home seas. We use tentacles in sequence to move through water. This is the same principle. Exactly, Jiho agreed. Space is like an ocean with no currents. You swim through it with technique, not force. The Mirians adopted swimming motions for moving through zero gravity. It looked strange but worked beautifully. Their flexible bodies could navigate tight spaces easily once they learned to control their tentacles properly. 2 weeks into training, Doyen decided it was time for a real test. A practice assembly. The team would build a small relay structure together. Humans and aliens working side by side. Hyun led the mixed team. 2 Vortans, 1 Hexari, 1 Mirian, and herself. They entered the cargo bay where components floated, ready to be assembled. The first attempt was chaos. The Vortans forgot their training and used all 4 arms. They started spinning. The Hexari tried to help but moved too suddenly, creating more problems. The Mirian panicked and grabbed everything with all tentacles at once. Components scattered everywhere. After 2 frustrating hours, they had connected only 4 pieces. 1 was installed backwards. Hyun called a stop. Everyone found an anchor point and held still. They needed to think, not just react. This is not working, Hyun said calmly. We are not coordinating. We are working as individuals, not as a team. She looked at each team member. On your homeworlds, how do you coordinate group work? Thexrel answered. Vortans use hierarchy. 1 leader gives orders. Others follow precisely, the Hexari flickered. We synchronize light patterns. Constant communication through color and brightness. Murians use scent signals, Kelsh added. Chemical messages tell others our intentions. Hyun nodded thoughtfully. All of those work with gravity. With solid ground. Here we need something simpler. She gestured to Taemin, who had been observing. Show them the buddy system. Taemin and Hyun demonstrated. They assembled a small section of the structure, while staying aware of each other constantly. Before Hyun made a large movement, she touched Taemin's arm lightly. A signal. He shifted his position to compensate before she even moved. When Taemin needed to push off from something, he made eye contact with Hyun first. She nodded. He pushed. We stay connected, Hyun explained. Not physically always, but in awareness. You know where your partner is, where they are going, what they plan to do. You work together, not separately. The alien workers watched carefully. Then they tried to copy it. The Vortans touched arms to communicate. The Hexari synchronized their light pulses in new patterns designed for teamwork. Kelsh the Murian discovered that linking tentacle tips with teammates created a biological network for coordination. They tried the assembly again. This time, progress was better. When a Vortan needed to move, it signaled its Hexari partner by touching it gently. The Hexari shifted position to compensate. When Kelsh grabbed a component, it warned Hun first with a tentacle tap. She adjusted her position so Kelsh's movement would not disrupt her work. It still took 6 hours, far longer than an experienced human team needed. But by the end of the day, the practice structure was complete, fully assembled. Every connection solid. The team floated back to the main ship tired but satisfied. They had done it. Different species, different bodies, different instincts. But working together, they had succeeded. Doyen reviewed the day's recordings that evening. He called Hyun to his quarters to discuss what he had seen. They are learning fast, he observed. Faster than I expected. They are motivated, Hyun replied. They see that humans can do this. It challenges them. Makes them want to prove they can learn too. Good. Because tomorrow we start on the real relay. Outside the ship. In actual space. That will be the true test, Hyun nodded. She looked out the viewport at the neutron star in the distance. Its powerful magnetic fields created beautiful auroras across the black of space. Beautiful but deadly to electronics. This project would push everyone to their limits, but she believed they were ready. Humans and aliens together, they would build something amazing. Construction of the Deneb relay began on a cold morning, though morning and night had no real meaning in space. The teams gathered in the airlock chamber, checking their suits and equipment. Today they would work outside the ship for the first time, in real space. With real consequences for mistakes. The relay structure would be enormous when finished. A 3-dimensional lattice of energy conduits and processing nodes stretching nearly 1 kilometer across. It would take weeks to build, maybe months if problems occurred. Doyen divided the workers into 4 teams. Each team would handle a different section of the relay. The human workers were spread across all teams to provide guidance and expertise. Hyun would coordinate everything from the construction command center inside the ship. The first team exited through the airlock. Doyen led them. 2 Vortons named Thexrel and Vexen came with him, along with a Hexari engineer and Taman. They pushed away from the ship, drifting toward the construction site where the first components floated in carefully positioned arrays. The neutron star dominated the view. Its surface churned with magnetic storms that created spectacular light shows. Beautiful and dangerous. The same magnetic fields that created the lights also disrupted every electronic system. The workers' suits had minimal computer assistance. No automated positioning. No trajectory calculation, just basic life support and communication. Doyen touched his helmet communicator. Remember your training. Move slowly. Think before you act. Every motion counts. The team approached the first cluster of components. These were the foundation pieces. Large structural beams that would form the relay's basic framework. Each beam was 10 meters long and massed several hundred kilograms. Thexrel reached the first beam. He had learned well during training. Instead of grabbing it with all 4 arms, he used just his upper 2 arms. His lower arm stayed still, providing balance. He rotated the beam carefully, lining it up with a second beam that Vexen was positioning. Good, Doyen encouraged. Taman, bring the connector assembly. Taman pushed off from a nearby anchor point. He carried a connector unit, a complex piece of machinery that would lock the 2 beams together. As he drifted toward the Vortons, he gave himself a slow spin. The rotation let him see all around, checking for obstacles or other workers in his path. He arrived at the worksite and stopped his spin with a gentle touch on Thexrel's shoulder. The Vortan was ready. Together they positioned the connector while Vexen held both beams steady. The connector clicked into place. The first 2 pieces of the relay were joined. Section 1, connection successful. Hyun's voice came through their helmets. All readings normal. Proceed to next assembly point. The work continued, slow, methodical. Each connection took 15 to 20 minutes. The teams had to be careful. One wrong move could send a massive beam spinning away into space, lost forever. By the end of the first day, Team 1 had completed 12 connections. It did not sound like much, but 12 connections meant the basic framework for one section was taking shape. Team 2, led by Minji, worked on a different section. They had 3 Murians on their team along with Bora and a Velkari engineer. The Murians had proven especially good at handling multiple small components simultaneously. Kelsh, the Murian, grasped 5 small processing nodes with different tentacles. Moving carefully, he brought them to Minji one at a time. She installed each node into the growing lattice, checking alignment and power connections. The work went smoothly. The Murian's many tentacles were perfect for this kind of detailed assembly. But then a problem occurred. One of the processing nodes activated prematurely. A power surge, probably caused by the neutron star's magnetic interference. The node sparked and began spinning wildly, sparks flying from its connectors. Everyone back, Minji commanded. The team pushed away from the malfunctioning node. Everyone except Minji. She moved closer instead. Minji, what are you doing? Bora asked urgently. That node is connected to 3 others. If it tears loose, it will damage them too. I can stop it. She approached the spinning node carefully. It rotated fast, once per second. Sparks continued to fly. One touch in the wrong place could electrocute her through her suit's gloves. Minji watched the rotation, counted the rhythm in her head. 1 rotation, 2, 3. On the 4th rotation, she reached out and grabbed it at exactly the right moment. Her hands clamped on the non-electrified section. The rotation transferred to her body. She started spinning instead of the node. But she had stopped the node from tearing loose. Using her own rotation, she positioned herself and reached for the emergency shutoff. Clicked it. The node powered down, stopped sparking. Kelsh reached her with a tentacle and stopped her spin. Crisis averted. Good work, Hyun said from the command center. But next time, wait for backup before approaching a malfunction. Understood, Minji replied, breathing hard. Team 3 had their own challenges. They were working in a tight section where beams intersected at complex angles. Jiho led this team with 2 Hexari and a Vortan named Grexal. The Hexari engineers had developed remarkable skill with their internal mass shifting technique. They could position themselves in tiny spaces and make micro-adjustments that even humans struggled with. Their rigid crystalline bodies could wedge into gaps and provide stable anchor points. One Hexari named Prism wedged itself between 3 beams, creating a living tripod. This gave Jiho a stable platform to work from. He assembled a complex junction node while basically standing on Prism's crystalline body. "This is amazing," Jiho said. "Humans cannot do this. Our bodies are too flexible." Prism's light pattern flickered with pride. "Each species brings advantages. We learn from each other." The work continued for days, then weeks. The relay grew larger. Slowly, the lattice structure took shape. What had been floating chaos of disconnected components became an organized network of beams, nodes, and conduits. As the structure grew, it created its own challenges. The relay's mass began affecting nearby objects with subtle gravitational pull. Workers had to account for this when planning trajectories. A path that seemed straight would curve slightly as you approached the massive structure. Yunji held a training session to explain this. Even in zero gravity, gravity still exists. It is just very weak. But the relay has significant mass now, maybe 50,000 kilograms total. That mass creates gravity, small but measurable. She showed calculations on her data pad. When you push off toward the relay from 50 meters away, you will curve toward it by about 5 centimeters during your drift. This seems small, but it matters. Plan for it. The alien workers found this fascinating. The Hexari, especially with their mathematical minds, began calculating these gravitational effects instinctively. They became experts at predicting how trajectories would curve near massive objects. By the 5th week, something remarkable became obvious. The alien teams were working independently. They no longer needed constant human supervision. The Vortans moved with confidence, their 4 arms creating beautiful patterns of coordinated motion. The Hexari positioned themselves in complex locations and worked with precision. The Murians handled dozens of small components with tentacle coordination that amazed everyone. And they had developed new techniques, methods that humans had never thought of. The Vortans created something they called the web. Using all 4 arms, they could create a stable framework by connecting to 4 different anchor points simultaneously. This gave them a working platform that was more stable than anything humans could achieve with just 2 arms. The Hexari learned to use their light-bending abilities for micro-adjustments. By focusing their internal light in specific directions, they could create tiny amounts of photon pressure, not enough to move large distances but perfect for fine positioning work. The Murians discovered their tentacles could sense vibrations through the relay structure itself. They could feel when other workers were moving on different sections, even when visual sight lines were blocked. This gave them awareness that prevented collisions and improved coordination. Doyen watched all of this with pride. They have not just learned our techniques, they have built on them, created their own methods. This is what cooperation looks like. On the final week of construction, all 4 teams came together for the last major assembly. The 4 sections of the relay needed to be connected at a central junction point. This required precise coordination. 12 workers from 6 species all working simultaneously. Hyun coordinated from the command center. Team 1, bring your section in from north. Team 2 from south. Team 3 from east. Team 4 from west. Slow approach, 5 meters per minute. The 4 massive sections drifted toward the junction point. Each section massed over 10,000 kilograms. If any section arrived with too much momentum, the collision would destroy everything. Workers positioned themselves around each section, ready to make corrections. Doyen called out adjustments. Team 1, add 2 meters per minute. Team 3, reduce speed slightly. The sections approached. Closer, closer. 20 meters apart. 10 meters. 5. All teams, final adjustments now. Workers pushed and pulled on the massive structures. Tiny adjustments that changed trajectories by centimeters. But those centimeters mattered. The sections met at the junction point. Connection ports aligned perfectly. The celebration aboard the Meridian lasted long into the ship's night cycle. Workers from 6 different species floated in the cargo bay, sharing food and drink compatible with their various biologies. Stories were told. Techniques were demonstrated. Bonds were formed between beings who had never imagined working so closely together. Hyun floated near a viewport, watching the completed relay structure shine against the stars. The neutron star's aurora played across its surface, creating patterns of light that shifted and changed. It was beautiful. More than that, it represented something important, proof that different species could work together when they learned from each other. Shira of the Quellan Collective drifted over to join her. The Quellan had sent observers to watch the final stages of construction. Now Shira had an announcement to make. The Galactic Engineering Consortium has made a decision, Shira said. We are officially adopting human zero-gravity techniques into all our training programs. Every species, every space station. Everyone will learn these methods. Hyun felt a surge of pride but kept her voice calm. That is a significant decision. It is necessary, Shira replied. You have shown us that we became complacent. We relied on technology so much that we forgot the fundamental skills. Your species learned those skills through hardship. Through necessity, now you share that knowledge freely. The galaxy is better for it. Across the cargo bay, Taman was demonstrating a spinning technique to a group of fascinated Hexari engineers. They could not spin the same way with their rigid bodies, but they were adapting the concept, figuring out how to use rotation in ways that worked for crystalline beings. Minji floated with the Murians, discussing their vibration sensing ability. She had an idea for turning it into a safety system for space stations. If workers could sense vibrations through the structure, they could detect problems before they became emergencies. The Murians were excited about the possibility. Doyen and Commander Thexral floated together near the food dispensers. The old human and the four-armed Vorton had developed mutual respect over the weeks of construction. I have been thinking, Thexral said. The Vortan Empire has 12 orbital construction facilities, large projects building ships and stations. I want to invite human instructors to teach our workers these techniques. Will Earth agree to this? Doyen smiled. I think Earth would be honored, and I know several instructors who would jump at the chance. Teaching other species has become something we value. It makes us feel less like newcomers and more like true members of the galactic community. You are not newcomers anymore, Thexral said firmly. You have earned your place. Through skill. Through patience. Through generosity in sharing what you know. The conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the ship's communication system. All personnel, attention. Incoming transmission from Earth Space Command. Priority Level 1. Everyone stopped talking. Priority 1 meant something important. The cargo bay fell silent as the transmission came through. A holographic display activated showing Admiral Park, the commander of Earth Space Corps. She looked serious but not alarmed. Congratulations to the Deneb relay team on your successful completion, Admiral Park began. Your work has had effects beyond what you might imagine. In the 3 months since construction began, 17 galactic species have formally requested to establish training exchange programs with Earth. They want to send their people to Luna Base. They want human instructors at their facilities. The demand exceeds our current capacity. She paused, then smiled slightly. Therefore, Earth Space Command is authorizing the expansion of our zero-gravity training program. We are building 3 new facilities, one at Luna Base, one at Mars Station, one at Jupiter Orbital. We need experienced instructors for all of them. Her eyes seemed to look directly at the human team. I am offering positions to anyone on the Deneb team who wants to become a full-time instructor. The galaxy wants to learn from us. We need our best people teaching them. The transmission ended. The human team members looked at each other. This was a huge opportunity, a chance to shape how an entire galaxy approached spacework. Hyun spoke first. I want to do it. I want to teach. Taman nodded immediately. Me too. Can you imagine teaching hundreds of different species, learning how each one adapts the techniques? That would be amazing. One by one, the other humans agreed. Doyen, Minji, Jiho, Yunji, Bora. All of them wanted to be part of this new program, but their decision created a question. If they became instructors, who would do the actual construction work? Who would build the relays and stations and ships that the galaxy needed? The answer came from an unexpected source. Kelch the Murian floated forward, tentacles moving in patterns that indicated excitement. We will build. Those of us who learned from you. We will teach others of our species. The knowledge will spread. Murians can become zero-gravity specialists. So can Vortans, Hexari, all species. Thexral gestured agreement with all 4 arms. Kelch speaks truth. You taught us not just techniques, but how to learn. How to adapt. How to develop our own methods. We do not need humans to hold our hands anymore. We can work independently and continue improving. It was a profound moment. The realization that the teaching had worked, that the students had become capable of teaching others. The knowledge would spread naturally now from species to species, each one adapting it to their own needs and sharing their innovations. Over the following months, the changes accelerated. Training facilities opened across the galaxy. Not just human-run facilities, but Vorten training centers, Quellan academies, Hexari institutes. Each species took what humans had taught them and built on it. New techniques emerged constantly. A Valkyrie engineer developed a method for using electromagnetic fields for fine positioning. A Quellan researcher published a paper on using sound waves for navigation in zero gravity. The knowledge grew and evolved. The zero gravity challenge at the Galactic Engineering Summit changed too. It was no longer a test that everyone failed. Now representatives from dozens of species completed it successfully. Each brought their own style, their own solutions. The challenge became a celebration of diversity, rather than a competition. Hyun stood in the observation gallery at Luna Base, watching a new class of students. 20 beings from 8 different species floated in the training chamber below. They were practicing basic movement. Some struggled. Some succeeded. All of them were learning. Beside her, Yoonji reviewed test results on a data pad. The Hexari students are progressing faster than any group we have trained. Their mathematical minds grasp the physics almost instantly. But they still need practice, Hyun observed. Understanding the theory is not the same as having the muscle memory. The instinct? True, but they will get there. They all will. A young Vortan student below was attempting the turtle method that Doyen had demonstrated months ago. The student curled into a ball, then extended all 4 arms at once. The result was chaotic spinning, exactly the mistake that Thexrol had made during the original challenge. But an older Vortan student floated over to help, showed the young one how to extend arms in pairs, how to create balance. The teaching was spreading not just from humans to aliens, but from aliens to other aliens. Taemin entered the observation gallery, pulling himself along a handhold. New group arriving tomorrow. 12 Mirians from the outer colonies. They heard about Kelsh's success and want to learn. Good, Hyun said. The more who learn, the safer everyone becomes. Every person who understands zero gravity is one less person who will make a fatal mistake in space. It is more than safety, though, Taemin replied. It is about belonging. When you know how to move in space naturally, when you understand the environment, you stop being a visitor. You become part of it. That is what we gave the galaxy. Not just techniques, but the ability to feel at home in space. The training session below ended. Students exited the chamber, talking excitedly in various languages. Translator devices worked overtime to keep up. But even without understanding the words, the meaning was clear. They were proud, excited, beginning to grasp something fundamental. That evening, Hyun recorded a message to send to Admiral Park, a progress report on the training program. The expansion is proceeding ahead of schedule, she reported. We have trained over 300 aliens in the past 2 months. Success rate is 92%. Those who complete training are returning to their homeworlds and teaching others. The knowledge is spreading exponentially. She paused, considering her next words carefully. But something unexpected is happening. The different species are not just learning our techniques. They are combining them with their own natural abilities to create entirely new methods. The Hexari photon pressure technique, the Murian vibration sensing, the Vortan web framework. These are innovations we never imagined. I believe we have started something that will change space exploration forever. Not because humans are special, but because we were willing to share. We showed the galaxy that limitations can become strengths, that struggling to survive in harsh conditions teaches valuable lessons, that every species has something to contribute. She ended the recording and sent it. Then she floated to the viewport and looked.